Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and we are moving on with our DCL 201 series. The 101 series, just to kind of remind everybody, is the basics of Disney Cruise Line and what to find out about it. And with our DCL 201 series, we're trying to give you a look into how some of us here on the podcast plan our trips and then bringing on guests as well. And today, as we kind of move into our third episode, I'd like to welcome back to the show Joe Chung from Disney Deciphered and Saferocity Observation Deck Miles and Points. How are you doing today, Joe?
Pretty good. How are you, Steve? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and doing this. And the first two episodes I did with my wife about our Greek cruise, well, it hasn't canceled yet, but it, I'm sure, is going to be going by the wayside. I'm not sure the Magic is going to Europe anytime soon. Any thoughts on where the Magic might end up, Joe?
I don't know. I mean, I thought that they were going to, like, obviously the Wonder wasn't going to be able to do its June sailings out of Vancouver. So I thought that they were going to do some stuff on the West Coast. I'm not sure if it was because of the crew members who were diagnosed with COVID-19 that they decided to just bench the Wonder until at least July. But because that happened, originally I would have said the Magic would probably just sail around and do some Bahamian or Caribbean cruises, you know, in May and June if Disney Cruise Line is sailing then, if they're skipping Europe. But now with Wonder Bench, I don't know if I'm not sure. Maybe it's 50-50. Maybe the Magic gets benched too, even if the Dream and Fantasy are still sailing.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of reports yesterday, the last couple of days, where they've actually sent their entertainment staff home. I'm not sure what with the main force of the crew, if they're still on board, but I know that they started sending their entertainment staff home off the Magic here over the last couple of days. So it's kind of looking more and more like they may mothball the ship for a month or two, and then maybe if things can somewhat kind of come back to normal, they send her over there for the second half. But we've also heard reports that probably the Magic will not be going to Europe this summer.
Yeah, that'd be my prediction.
Well, let's kind of move into this episode. I did really want to do a planning episode this way, but I think it's affecting a lot of us out there as far as Disney canceling cruises and then giving people the ability to either get their money back or rebook their cruise. And this is kind of where you found yourself, Joe, and our family as well. And I thought we'd kind of talk about your experience through canceling your cruise and then rebooking the cruise, your next cruise. So first off, let's just start off with, what did you guys have planned?
Yeah, so first must insert that I think, I record a lot of podcasts, but I think you and me, Steve, have recorded the most podcasts that have never made it to air because we recorded for like an hour talking about that original booking. And then, a couple of years ago, we had another hour that we had to just totally trash. So I don't know if it's me and you, but hopefully we get this one out.
I think this one's going to come out. So what did you guys have? Well, we'll just go back. I know what you had planned, but let's let the listeners know what you guys had planned.
Yes. Anyway, sorry for the digression. Yeah, so we had the Disney Magic booked sailing out of Miami from April 20th to April 25th. That was going to be a 5-night cruise. But, when you and I had been recording, I guess COVID-19 was starting to become a big thing. And I guess we should have known better because, that cruise did get canceled, a week or two ago. And so we cannot sail that anymore. And no one's sailing until April 28th at a minimum.
So you guys did it a little differently than ours, and I want to talk about yours first, but there was kind of two different thoughts. People were either canceling because they weren't going to go because of the COVID-19 thing, or a lot of people were waiting until Disney canceled it to see what they offered. So we actually canceled ours before Disney canceled their cruise, but let's talk about yours first. And what did you guys do?
We figured because it was April and, we're talking like mid-March, Disney had already announced that they would not have any cancellation fees. So, they had already given us, I guess, the peace of mind to be able to cancel like the day before the cruise. So we knew that we had that. So with that in our back pocket, I was kind of like, you know what? I feel pretty confident that this cruise is not going to sail. And so I was like, well, since the original cruises that Disney canceled, the ones in March, they got 125% future cruise credit, and they also got a full refund, and those are the options they could choose from. I was assuming that we would get the same thing. And so I was like, well, might as well wait it out. If it gets to April 12th, April 13th, it's still not canceled, then we can cancel it then if we're not feeling comfortable to sail. But obviously they canceled the cruise on us way before that even came to being.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on this, but normally on a sailing like in the Caribbean, like yours, it's 90 plus days prior to the cruise sailing. If you cancel, then you can get your deposit back. And for European cruises, it's a longer time frame. And then also with concierge, they got some different stipulations as well. So we won't get too deep in the weeds, but normally it's 90 plus days that you're going to have to make the cancel. So in this case, as you're saying, Joe, you could pretty much tell that when that canceled, you were probably going to be offered the same thing that they were offering previous cruises when they canceled. So when they finally did cancel your cruise, how did they notify you? And then what did they offer you, what you thought they were going to offer?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. My sister was on the same cruise and she got an email. These things hit Twitter like immediately, or social media, and everyone knows what's going on. And she got an email within maybe like 20 minutes of when I first started the news hitting social media. I did not end up getting an email until like 2 or 3 days later. So I'm not sure exactly what the system was, but Disney emailed out and they said exactly, they offered the exact offer that they had offered the previously canceled cruises, which was, like I said, either a full refund to the original payment or 125% future cruise credit for any cruise within 15 months from the original sail date. So I don't know if this is getting ahead of ourselves, but I actually went ahead and made my decisions and made all my moves before I had even received the email saying my cruise was actually officially canceled. So, I knew it was canceled, and Disney told me a couple days after I actually did something about it.
Let's just kind of turn to that. What did you guys pick before we talk about the actual process itself, how you guys actually moved your cruise to the next one? But which cruise did you pick and why did you pick it?
The short version is we had started looking at Alaska cruises for this summer, but DCL was like way too expensive and also way too booked. So, I'm talking summer 2020. This is before anything had happened. We decided to postpone traveling to Alaska this summer. We're looking into other summer vacation plans, which of course have since been torpedoed, but that's neither here nor there. I was thinking to myself, well, with the 125% future cruise credit and the fact that the money that we had paid for this April cruise is already a sunk cost. Actually, this is bad economics, but whatever. I was like, well, let's just take that money and roll it over to next year, 2021. And I was like, well, let's take a DCL cruise to Alaska in 2021. So that's what we booked. Obviously, it's going to end up costing us more money, but it is a year and a half from now. And I really wanted to, my parents and I went on Alaska cruise with my grandparents when I was a kid, a little bit older than the age that my kids are now. But, it's something I've really wanted to do with my parents. And this seems like a good time. Our youngest kid will be 3.5, so she won't be as much of a handful then, hopefully. I don't know, terrible threes are a real thing. But so, that's our goal. We are going to hopefully take a 7-night Alaska cruise on Disney in summer of 2021.
That's kind of a great way to do it. I mean, you kind of fall into it. Unfortunately, you lose the cruise this year, but being able to use that extra 25% to maybe get you into that Alaska cruise, which you were kind of, holding off on because of the price point or whatnot, and then also your kids. But I think that's a great thing that you're able to roll that into. Yeah,
I'm pretty excited. I mean, honestly, like if I'm being completely honest, looking at some of the itineraries on other cruise lines, for example, Disney does not go to the Hubbard Glacier, except for they have that 9-day next summer that will go to the Hubbard. So we'll miss that. So, it's not the perfect cruise, but I do prefer Disney Cruise Line to at least the research that I did on other cruise lines, because I was looking for Alaska cruises for summer 2020 and looking at it, I just didn't feel as comfortable with, what it seemed like was being offered and, being upsold and all that stuff. So, happy to be hopefully sailing next summer and, hopefully we're all healthy and my parents can come. Maybe we will not be able to sucker my sister into going because she is pregnant and was going to be almost 6 months pregnant on this cruise in April. And next year, you can't sail until the kid is like 6 months or something. So there's that whole year window where you can't sail. So she just took the refund.
Okay. I totally digress, but I wish someday Disney would do a one-way. Instead of doing the 7-night out of Vancouver, I wish they'd do a one-way that goes all the way up to, I'm totally drawing a blank on the port up by Anchorage and then come back.
So it's Seward?
Yeah, Seward. Yeah, I wish they would do something like that. Just one, kind of, they got that 90, like you said, where they get a Hubbard Glacier and up into, they go to Icy Strait, I guess, which there's been kind of mixed reviews on that port. But I would love to see them go all the way up to Seward and back one time, kind of like a back-to-back. You can either go back-to-back or just one way and then spend some time up in the Anchorage Denali area.
Yeah, I mean, it really feels like those one-way 7-night cruises in Alaska really take their time a little more, and it seems like you get to see more. So, yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, one day. Okay, well, let's talk about actually moving the cruise itself then. So you did it ahead of time before they actually announced it, but how easy was it for you to do it? Did you call into Disney Cruise Line? How did that work?
So the process is actually super straightforward. They have updated, actually, I should say I did it through the travel agent website, but they have updated it so that as a form of payment, you can just click on future cruise credit from COVID-19 canceled cruise, and then apparently they'll process it in due time. So you can either do it that way, and I was going to do it that way, but now that I'm thinking about it out loud, I actually ended up calling. So yeah, I did not do it that way. So sorry. That is an option for people though. Like you can just do it online. And I think the regular Disney Cruise Line website allows you to do that as a payment option as well. But what I did was I put the cruise on hold for a little while, thought about it for a day, cleared it with my wife, and then I could not use my future cruise credit to pay for a cruise that I had held. And so I called in, and it was really very fast. I was talking to Christy about this offline. I'm very curious what the Disney cruise loads are going to be like afterwards, because when you call Disney World, there's like a super huge wait time on the phone, but Disney Cruise Line, I got like right through in no wait time at all. And so they took care of it. I was on and off the phone in 5 minutes, including the message at the beginning where they say that I might hear dogs and babies crying when I'm talking to my phone agent. So it was really convenient, and they applied the future cruise credit no problem very quickly.
That's a good point, because when we did ours too, I've talked to Disney Cruise Line twice or 3 times now just recently for different things, and I've been able to get right through. So that's a good point on as far as what their loads might be like after they start sailing. It will be interesting. So were you able to get what you wanted? I guess that's the other question I had, as far as, moving your cabin from the Magic over to the Wonder. Were you able to get the type of cabin you wanted? So
it seems like those Alaska cruises right now, there's still like quite a large selection of rooms. We like to get connecting staterooms, and so we got 2 connecting Ocean View staterooms. When I've booked Disney cruises in the past, you kind of can see when things are getting full because there's not a lot of options for connecting staterooms, if any. But, we don't have any problem finding connecting staterooms for Ocean View, or, even inside isn't a problem. So it looks like that cruise right now isn't super booked. So pretty happy with what we got.
And Ocean View up in Alaska, I think, is just as good as getting a veranda, to be completely honest. Being able to open the windows and see that while you're in your stateroom, and then the rest of the time when you're on the ship, you can see the sights as you're just kind of moving around the ship itself. So I'm super excited for you guys to do that cruise.
Really excited as well. And yeah, I thought about the veranda, but the Ocean View is already pretty expensive, and the veranda is like another 50% on top of that. So our 5-night Bahamian cruise, even at 125%, is not covering this cruise. So, it is still going to be a cash outlay. So I just decided the veranda was going to be too much.
Yeah, at that price point, those teak chairs on deck 4 look pretty nice, don't they? You can see just everything you want to see from there.
Yeah, and then I can see you running by. So yeah, it's perfect.
Well, before we jump into my cruise and what changed with that, is there anything else people should know about that cruise credit, Joe?
Yeah, so one thing I found out when I called in that I've not known if I was just booking online was that the cruise credit is per person on the cruise. So like I said, we were booked for 7 of us, my family of 5 and my parents, in connecting staterooms on the Magic this April. When we were booking for July of 2021, they actually took the amount that we paid for each person for our April cruise and gave us 125% of that. So if you've ever booked a cruise before, the first 2 people are kind of the most expensive, and then the 3rd and 4th or 5th person in a cabin costs less. And so the future cruise credit went by person per whatever was originally charged. That only will matter if you're sailing with different people. So if we had decided to sail without my parents, I'm not sure exactly what would have happened, whether we would have had to get a refund for their 2 cruise fares from our original cruise, or whether we could have convinced them verbally to like apply that to our cruise. So I'm not exactly sure how that would happen. So I'm curious to hear what experiences people have had, but that's something to bear in mind.
And you can kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I understand, I think you can move those to different cruises too. So like you could take your kids' money and put it to one cruise, and then like you and your wife's money and put it to a second cruise. You could even split it up that way. Yeah,
I'm guessing that they're going to be pretty, happy to keep the money however you want to spread out the money. So I don't think it'll be a huge issue, but I do think it's just something to bear in mind when you're calling it. Especially, I had to kind of write down all the numbers on the literal back of an envelope to make sure that everything was in place. But it does seem like Disney's computer has it all down. And especially if you're booking with the same people, it's very clean and easy, and they've got it all taken care of.
Ours was a little bit different. We decided not to play chicken with Disney and wait till the cruise was canceled. We canceled it before we canceled our cruise, which was set to sail April 19th out of San Diego on the Disney Wonder. We canceled it and moved that cruise to a different cruise before Disney actually canceled our cruise. Does that make sense? Holy cow. I think I'm going to confuse everybody with that.
So you're saying you just took whatever money you had paid for cruise A and moved it to cruise B in the future before Disney even canceled stuff.
Good point. You broke it down easier. Yes, that's what we did. And we did it because it was my mom's 80th birthday, which was going to be the second day we were on the ship, which was kind of the whole reason we were gone, was to celebrate her 80th birthday. With my parents being older, with COVID-19, we really didn't want to risk, being on a ship with their, age and possibilities of problems that could arise from that. So before they canceled our cruise, we moved that money to a different cruise. So I thought we were kind of all set and done. And lo and behold, about a week later, I got an email from Disney that said, and I thought this was kind of interesting, that their records indicate that you were originally booked on one cruise sailing and you moved it due to COVID-19 concerns. So when I talked to that agent, she must have checked a box or something like that notified them that that's why we were moving it. And they basically offered us the same thing that you got offered, Joe.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I'm actually hearing, I think even if you didn't say that, they were sending it to anyone who had canceled or moved before. Although, don't quote me on that.
Okay, so maybe it wasn't because I said it was COVID-19. Maybe it was just everybody in that point or in that time frame, they decided to offer this as well. But they didn't do it automatically. I had to call back in. And then what they did was the exact same thing that happened to you, Joe. They took 25% of our previous cruise fare and applied it to our new cruise, which was pretty nice. It took another $1,000 off, so I was not complaining about that. That was nice of Disney to do that. I wasn't expecting them to do that.
Yeah, it's a great deal, and it's good that they made things right, because if I was in your shoes, I would have been pretty put out if other people had gotten it offered just for procrastinating or waiting. So, good on them.
And like I said, I guess I kind of whipped. I didn't play chicken with Disney on this one. So was there anything else that we need to let the listeners know, Joe, from changes that you've heard, around people that you've talked to? And I kind of want to ask you a little bit about becoming a travel agent, because you've recently done that. But is there anything else that you've heard differently that we need to pass out to listeners today?
No, I think the process has all been pretty smooth. I think they are doing right by their customers. The phone agents have been great. Like I said, also, there hasn't been a wait time. So if you're worried about doing it online, I think just call in and do it. I should say I do have experience with getting a refund, or I know someone who has experience with getting a refund. That was pretty straightforward as well. My sister asked for a refund because, like I said, she wasn't going to be able to sail. One thing to note about the refund is that it will be applied to your original form of payment. And I know people like to pay using Disney gift cards. It's very important to either find the Disney gift card that you had originally used, or B, call in to cancel for the refund if you want a refund. I think you have to call in anyway, but make sure you tell the agent, I no longer have the gift card that I used to pay, and so could you please issue me another one? Otherwise, it's just going to be a real pain to run it down.
I think we could do a whole podcast on paying with Disney gift cards, couldn't we, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. I was the one who sold my sister that Disney gift card, so luckily I haven't lost it yet, and so I have to refund her for it. But yeah, I still have it, so thank goodness, because she made all those calls without me, and so that would have been pretty stressful.
Well, overall, I'm sorry that you had to change your cruise. I'm sorry, we had to change our cruise. There's a lot of us out there in the same boats that are changing vacations around, whether it's with Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney World, DVC, whatnot. But it seems like, at least with DCL's case, they're trying to do the best they can to make it right by their passengers. And for the most part, and it sounds like for you as well, it was a pretty easy process. So,
yeah, it was really straightforward. Can't complain about the, how things were handled, and, pretty happy. I think, like everyone, just really more concerned about my family, the world in general, that people are healthy and safe during this crazy time. And honestly, the crew members as well. It was really sad to see, I think it was like 38 members on the Disney Wonder were sick, and all that stuff is really scary. So, just hoping everyone's okay during this crazy time.
Definitely. And I guess before we get out of here tonight, Joe, just recently I learned that you became a travel agent. I was wondering if you could tell our guests a little bit why you decided to do that. And I couldn't imagine, somebody who's a better travel agent, listening to you and Leslie talk over on Disney Deciphered with all the knowledge that you have, visiting the Disney parks and sailing with Disney Cruise Line. But what made you decide to become a travel agent?
Well, Steve, let me just say that if I'm in Las Vegas and I bet on red, you should bet on black, because I probably picked the worst time in history to become a travel agent. But yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of people, I've helped a lot of people, friends and stuff. Friends will contact me to help them book their trips, or people who listen to the Disney Deciphered podcast will do so. So, it just seemed like a natural extension of my hobby and the thing I already love. I really do enjoy, I get a high off of helping people to plan their trips. And especially when I'm not traveling, when I'm not getting the chance to go to Disney World or on a Disney Cruise Line, I get really excited, kind of maybe disturbingly so excited about getting the chance to help others to do that. So, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. It is joking aside, it was a pretty weird time, because I think right when I officially got my credentials, that's when everything started shutting down on the parks and the cruise line and all that stuff. So it is pretty funny. It's not a joke that I picked a terrible time to become a travel agent, but at the same time, I think one day this will all be over and people will be booking travel again, and I'd be happy to help people if they need it. Of course, I am also kind of the worst advertiser, because normally you'll be like, oh, you don't want to wait on hold? Use a travel agent. But I just said 3 times that Disney Cruise Line has 0 hold time, so you might as well call yourself. But travel agents are of no cost to you, though. Point that out.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, Joe. And you know what? And when this is all said and done, you'll have this experience behind your belt too, to help people navigate it. And hopefully we'll never have to go through it in the future, but you'll have kind of this experience to help people navigate it in the future when it comes to canceling trips and moving things around as well. So before we get out of here, how can people get a hold of you if they want to use your services as a travel agent, or just find you on your podcast as well, Joe?
You can hear Leslie and I podcasting at DisneyDeciphered.com. That's just a Disney World planning podcast. Very easy to get into, just talking about how to deal with Disney World in general. You can also email me, Joseph Chung at travelmation.net, if you're interested in using me as a travel agent. But really, just the easiest thing to do is connect with me on Twitter at AsTheJoeFlies. And, I'm there just goofing around all the time, talking about Disney, having fun, just doing my best to keep my mind off of real life.
And I have to say that I love your guys' podcast, the Disney Deciphered podcast. You guys give so much information out in such a short amount of time that you made me really want to up my game and try and do that with this podcast. So hopefully I got it under 30 minutes, because usually we go an hour.
Well, once you throw this entire episode in the trash can, I'm pretty sure it'll help your average. So
no, this one's coming out, and I hope that
we'll see.
This one's coming out, and I hope in the future that we are not talking about changing people's trips like this, and we're talking about booking people in those dream vacations that they want to go on. So before we get out of here, Joe, the only thing I have to say to you is I will see you in Alaska on the beautiful Disney Wonder.
See you then, Steve.
All right, take care, Joe. Thanks.